at some point we are going to have to do a whole show about how good this show sounds.
Hey everybody, welcome to Downballot. We do this show most Tuesdays, 7:30 p.m. Pacific, right here on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/Echoplex Media. Simulcasting to other places, hi other places, if there's anybody there. Obviously the Icecast, the Legacy service. And shout out to everybody who's been with us the whole time since before we were even doing video. Big shout out to all those people. It was an interesting time. Anyway, you can support this project by going to echoplexmedia.com. Click the support us tab and you can find, I don't know, various ways. I prefer you just give me money directly, but you could make your own decisions once you get to there. And I'm producer Dave. You can find me on Grindr.
And this is the Councilman, as always. You can find me on Twitter at @THE_Councilman. You can also now find me just waxing nostalgic for those days back in the 2016 era when we first joined the Echoplex Media team, and we were all gathered around a table in your living room. Anyone could just walk in the front door at any given time. You could run to the fridge and grab a beer in 2 seconds. And yeah, things have changed a bit, but some things have still stayed the same. So cheers to you, producer Dave, and all you've built here. I can only hope to ride on your coattails to great success as the 9th best local news podcast in California, according to some dude.
The main thing that's changed is I don't go to work during the day anymore, and I do this for a living now. So thanks to everybody who's been supportive of us, even back then, but especially now, because I don't know, I don't pay my rent if y'all aren't financially supporting the channel. And just thanks to everybody who hangs out on Tuesday, because I know it gets into the weeds and it's all local based stuff, and the numbers on Tuesday aren't great, but it's the ride or dies, the regulars who hang out here on Tuesday, and so we appreciate that. We appreciate that. Also, just thanks to everybody who participates in Mixie Monday, all the DJs and the fans and everything. From noon to midnight Pacific, we have a raid train every Monday that you can sign up for using the Raid Pal service. Yesterday was super fun, and next week is almost already filled up, but people could figure that out. But also, what's more important is that people watch, listen, and rock out to the various DJs with their various styles of music and their various strange video overlays. Last night, we had a very cool thing happen. Joni, known as VC Archives, did my visuals for me remotely. I sent her 2 feeds of 2 of the cameras in the studio over Video Ninja. She ran them through a bunch of analog video mixing equipment from the 80s and 90s and overlaid VHS tapes and stuff over that with effects, and then fed it back to me over Video Ninja, and I used that for my overlay. So there were like both of my cameras sort of mixing in and out of each other with those, remember the checkerboard wipe that people used to use?
Oh, completely. So it looked like some sort of cross between Talking Heads and a Replacements music video or something, right?
Yeah, with belly dancers and
cool.
scenes from what was that? Lawnmower Man, and it was nice. And like random people's home movies and stuff. It was like a fever dream. People could find a clip of that on our Odyssey channel. It looked really good. We're going to start doing that a little bit more often when I DJ. And we now have it set up to where if I just DJ late at night, she's up late, she's like, pipe me in 3 minutes. She's
boom.
Obviously, she's working on VHS tapes, so she has to find her like where the part is that she wants and stuff. But still, It's pretty fucking cool. And it takes... on one hand, it takes that off of my plate, having to make sure the visuals are interesting. But on the other hand, yesterday it was so interesting that I fucked up a couple times because I was mesmerized by the fucking video feed.
Nice.
Like not just like fuck ups where like you get like a double beat, but like fuck ups where like there's no sound.
Well, I can say with firm conviction, without doubt, that your current setup is not distracting me in the least.
Good. Hold on. Let me actually fix something for you. There you go. That's much better.
Oh, there you go.
All right.
That's distracting.
What do we got for... Well, now the co-host is distracted. What do we got for leading off?
Well, leading off, we're actually going to go down ballot to lead off to cover a story we've been covering since election night, because it's been going on since election night, and even have some late breaking news to announce right here on Down Ballot. So listener, viewer, stay tuned. Well, listener, you're probably going to get it as late breaking news, but anyway, viewer, stay tuned. So we've been covering the race to replace Congresswoman Anna Eshoo in Congressional District 16, which covers a good chunk of San Jose, West Valley, North County, and then parts of San Mateo County, including Half Moon Bay and Pacifica. So it stretches from Pacifica. If you guys know Bay Area geography at all, it stretches from Pacifica to the east side of San Jose, like a large banana going down the peninsula and wrapping around. So it's a very interesting district, very broad district. Anyway, Sam Liccardo was far and away the top vote getter, but the number 2 and 3 candidates, one of whom would ostensibly go to a runoff with Liccardo in November, have been sort of duking it out as votes have come in and shift and changing position, and being separated by as few as one vote at times, multiple times. But last week, the Secretary of State certified the election, and we had a surprise and something unprecedented, and I'm going to let KTVU tell you all about it.
Today, both San Mateo and Santa Clara County certified their election results. That makes the tie for second place in the District 16 congressional race now official. And it appears that Assemblymember Evan Lowe and Santa Clara County Supervisor Joe Simidian will both advance to the November general election. They will join frontrunner, former San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo. KTVU's Ann Rubin live now in Santa Clara County with more on what happens next. Ann.
Yeah, there are some big decisions to be made about whether either side wants to ask for a recount or if all the focus now shifts to November.
This is the day all the votes get checked, stamped, and sent to the Secretary of State, both in San Mateo County and in Santa Clara County.
Today is certification day.
And what they're certifying is hard to believe. With all the votes in the District 16 congressional race, it's a tie. Assemblymember Evan Lowe and Santa Clara County Supervisor Joe Simidian each have exactly 30,249 votes.
Well, I was shocked. I mean, this almost never happens and certainly hasn't happened in a congressional race in California.
According to San Jose State political science professor Melinda Jackson, it means both Lowe and Simidian will likely advance. They'll be joining frontrunner, former San Jose Mayor Sam Liccardo in the general election.
If we do have the three-way runoff in November, the winning candidate very well might not have a majority, so, it could be a plurality.
The big question now, will either camp ask for a recount in the hopes of breaking the tie? If they do, they'll have to pay for it up front, and it could run as much as $500,000.
They are expensive, and they have to basically ask for a recount within 5 days after the certification.
Today, both camps were still at the registrar of voters, poring over ballot images. However, political analysts think at this point a recount is unlikely.
Unless they had a really strong reason to think that a recount would be decided in their favor, I think they're probably thinking they want to hang on to their money and just focus on November.
Evan Lowe just released a statement saying, in part, "I'm honored to have won the support of our community to advance to the general election." He adds, "This historically close race shows that every vote really counts." Sam Liccardo's camp said, "We welcome the opportunity to continue to talk to voters about the issues facing our communities."
And Joe Simidian just released a statement moments ago saying, "Sometimes it takes a while for democracy to work. This has been one of those times. Call it a cliffhanger, a roller coaster, a wild ride, but it has absolutely been worth the wait." Now, we do expect to hear more from some of the candidates later this evening. The Secretary of State will now certify the election on April 12th. In Santa Clara County, Ann Rubin, KTVU Fox 2 News.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure neither are going to ask for a recount because, like they said, they're just spending their money on something that could end up meaning that they lose.
Correct. Yeah, and they could get reimbursed to some extent, from my understanding, if the recount were to turn the tide in their favor. If it goes against them, they still have to pay, right? So that'd be a double whammy. Both campaigns, Joe Simidian and Evan Lowe, swore up and down that they would not request a recount. They have not. However, tonight at 5 p.m. was the deadline to request a recount, and somebody, so process of elimination, somebody has requested a recount, and there's going to be a recount in this race. It could be that the vote shifts one way or the other, that Lowe ends up with more votes or Simidian ends up with more votes, and then they would move on to the runoff with Liccardo. It could be that some votes get moved one way, some votes get moved the other way. We still end up with a tie. Or it could be that it shifts significantly, but one way or another, we're going to find out in a few weeks, more than likely. But we're going to find out very soon who it was that requested the recount. We can kind of guess who. And
who
that
do you
person
think it
also
was?
Well, there's only one other candidate in this race. So then they're the only ones, I believe they're the only ones with standing. I don't think that anyone like you or me, a resident of the district, or whoever, if there was a resident of the district on this vidcast, I don't think we can request one. I think it has to be one of the candidates. But either way, you'd have to pay for it, right? And neither one of us, no matter how well we're doing on Echoplex Media here, neither one of us has $500K to drop on this. But Sam Liccardo does. Just putting it out there. And he's the one that stands to benefit the most.
Wait,
like
from a recount? I think my
Yes.
take was that with these two, I think that these two would split the vote between people who don't like Sam Liccardo And
Well,
that he
that's-
was in better with the three-way that I thought he'd be in better standing to win specifically versus Evan. Maybe not Joe Simidian, but specifically versus Evan, he's in a better position to win with this three-way race, I think, because it's almost the same race as the other one because nobody else got any votes besides these three.
That is absolutely a completely valid and reasonable way to look at it, because that's in fact that's the way that my uncles looked at it, who both of whom, or one of whom lives in San Jose, but both of whom absolutely can't stand Sam Liccardo. They were convinced that the tie was somehow Sam's ploy. He had rigged the system to get a tie for the two of them so that he could face both of them and they could divide their support and he would cruise to success. That is not necessarily the case. In fact, I think that the biggest beneficiary of a three-way race in this regard would be Evan. Joe Simidian and Sam Liccardo, while Joe Simidian is a Democrat and so is Sam Liccardo, neither one of them are dyed-in-the-wool progressives, and Joe Simidian is a Palo Alto progressive on top of that. So while they have a certain appeal in more conservative Democratic demographics, and I think that Sam particularly will do well in Republican demographics, and they do make up a sizable chunk of the vote, right? In a November electorate with a much bigger Democratic vote, a much bigger vote from people of color, especially the API community, which Evan would have not sole access to, right? They don't vote homogeneously, but he'd be the only person who really knows how to speak to that community, right? And really can speak to that community. And it's a huge chunk of the vote in this district. He would have a really good shot in a three-way race because, again, you don't have to get, like Dr. Jackson said, you don't have to get a majority. You just need a plurality to win.
The second place plus one, essentially.
Correct. And so, and it's yet to be seen what that electorate looks like. The voter turnout in this race was around 37% in Santa Clara County alone. I don't know what it was in San Mateo County. I think even worse. Even if you double that, they're talking about doubling that, in the fall. And that usually is what you get in a presidential race in November is about 70 to 80%, sometimes higher, 85% I've seen. I think it's been as high as 86% in Santa Clara County. Then, yeah, that's a huge amount of voters, right? That's coming to bear that didn't weigh in the primary at all. And those are fair game for anyone. So, and a lot of them tend to be Democrats, progressives, people of color, people who don't vote as often. And again, those are people that are in Evan's target universe, not necessarily Joe's. I've knocked so many doors where it's like Joe Simidian does not register with these people at all. Like they're just in San Jose, especially.
But weren't you knocking doors like closer to where you live though?
Oh, for sure. But also in, communities of color, communities of, lower income where they know Sam, but he doesn't necessarily speak to them, and they don't know Joe Simidian from Adam, right? He's very well known in Palo Alto. He's very well known in the North County and the more affluent neighbor communities. He's represented some segment of that population for a very, very long time in many, many offices. He's been in the state Senate. I think he's been in the state assembly. He's been on the board of supervisors now twice. So as my aunt put it, she was in Young Democrats and he was still in elected office, and my aunt is in her 70s. So do the math. So, I don't know that Joe necessarily relates to the same kind of voters that Evan can relate to. I think Evan has a much bigger lane in the three-way race. And regardless, I think that Sam sees that too. And Sam probably sees himself being able to run a race against Joe and just be the young Democrat, right? The young with new ideas and fresh start, right? Not a career politician, even though he is. Right, and he feels like he can run that race against Joe a lot easier than he could against an Evan.
What was the guy's name who I thought looked like one of the bad guys from Burn Notice? The guy I thought was fucking a spy.
Peter Dixon.
What if it's Peter Dixon?
Well, I mean, we'll see where his support comes down. All I know is that he finished fourth, and he spent an ungodly amount. I forget what it was, an ungodly amount of money for all the votes he got, for each vote that he got. He spent by far and away the most of anyone in this campaign. But Sam Liccardo has a ton of money. He's got $1 million in the bank already. That's exactly why it might be in his best interest to just drop some of that change and do this recount, because if he manages to knock either one of them out, I think it profiles better for him. Although I would, I'd love to see a Sam versus Evan just head to head. That would be very interesting. Frankly, I kind of feel like I know how a Sam Joe head to head will work out. But I would be very curious to see how a Sam Evan head to head will work out, and how that would play out.
I wonder if people who are like kind of undecided or whatever might see this the way that I see it, as being a smarmy fucking move by the guy who won.
Well, it's a smart move that could cost him $500,000, right? Like if it doesn't change a damn vote, although it should. Any system like this, even the registrars will tell you, is probably prone to, maybe a dozen votes over that many votes, being, changing hands or changing position. If you have the money, it behooves you to go for it. But that's really the only thing that would hold him back, right? If he didn't have to pay for it, I think it'd be in his best interest to do it anyway. So, and the fact that he has the money on hand, and it could deal a blow to whoever his opponent is, for just to have that head to head that's worth the expense, right? Even if he does have to pay for it.
Yeah, and I don't know the personalities or whether or not the two second place people have any kind of like personal relationship or goodwill or ill will toward one another. But I could see a way in which the two people that finished in second, once it's announced that Sam called for this, start messaging about what an asshole he is.
Well, I mean, I think that's going to, that'll definitely come up, especially if he's the one pushing this. But voters have very short memories, and drawing those lines, unfortunately, drawing those connection points is very difficult in any sort of efficient way that's not negative and nasty. That's another piece about this too. It's much harder to go negative in a three-way race than it is in a two-way race.
Right.
In a three-way race, you could attack one of the candidates, candidate B, but they still have candidate C to choose from, right? Whereas in this race, it's either you choose your candidate or you stay home, right? And that's usually what negative campaigns tend to be more about, anyways. People staying home. So we'll see what happens. And if the recount is the request is accepted, I've heard through the grapevine that it is going to happen. And then we'll keep you posted on who comes out on top, if anybody, or if we're back in the same boat we were yesterday.
So the other thing I'm thinking could happen here, and again, it relies on like some assumptions. Let's say that Evan comes out ahead in the recount, and this Joe Simidian guy is like, well, this was a fucking asshole move on your part. And instead of maybe staying out, now he endorses and campaigns with Evan because of the shitty thing that was just done by the guy who won.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I completely missed responding to that for you too. No, yeah, I think you're right. Already Joe and Evan, I think, share more affinity anyway, and maybe it's sort of an anyone but Sam kind of attitude. So you're right. I think that no matter what happens out of this, I think the third place candidate, if there is one, is going to want to bring hell to pay on Sam for knocking them out.
Right, and it's just like you said that this Joe Simidian's demographic is a demographic maybe that Evan would have a harder time catching, but if this other guy gets knocked out by this recall and he's pissed, now he starts campaigning for Evan in his community with the people who know and trust him. And
that would be huge for Evan.
Right, because Evan's not going to do great. Like Sam Liccardo is probably going to pull more of those votes, but if this guy's he got 16% of the vote in this, he's not nobody. And the people that voted for him are probably people who tend to trust him. And so I don't think this is going to work out in Sam Liccardo's favor, because I don't think Evan Lowe's going to if Evan Lowe ends up on the receiving end of like this, he's probably going to be going around fucking telling people like, hey, this asshole fucking did this. You should probably vote for his opponent. Like maybe that's not his way as far as wording, but there's ways in which he can be messaging that out there and be showing up at this other guy's campaign events and be supportive. So I think all that this is going to do, if it ends up changing the outcome, all this is going to do is like put these two other candidates are going to end up being more supportive of whoever comes out on top than maybe otherwise would have happened, because Sam used his money and influence to meddle in some shit that was just basically decided. And I could be wrong. Everybody loves to pick the winner, so who knows?
I think you're absolutely right. I think that that is how it would end up playing out. And in this, I think in this, currently three-way race, I still think Sam has a decent shot. I didn't mean to imply that Evan had it locked down. Evan has a wide lane. Doesn't mean he wins, right? You still got to drive the lane. You got to drive those voters home. But Sam would still have the advantage in that race. So yeah, it is surprising that he's willing to do this. But if again he's kind of gambling in a way. I think that if he's up against a Joe, it's a little bit. I do think it's an easier race for him, even with Evan throwing his support behind Joe. But
if it goes the other way,
it's a harder. It's just more interesting, right? So, and I don't think it's necessarily beneficial to
him.
And
if it ends up still being a tie, then he really looks like an asshole.
right. And he ends up having to pay for it too. And he's out $500K that he could have used towards his campaign in November. And that's really why frankly, why most folks didn't think anyone would do this. It's just that he has more money than these other candidates. He's going to have more money than them. By a long shot, so he can afford to make this gamble. And again, he's banking on people just having short memories and not caring that he was such a dick.
So what happens if one or the other of the second place candidates has like internal polling or whatever that shows that Sam Liccardo would clobber them in a general, or that they believe that, and could the one of the tied people step down and then kill the recount?
They could step. Yeah, I suppose they could. I don't know what the precedent is for
I'm
that.
I'm wondering if I'm not asking like,
they could choose not to file. Well, yeah, there's actually they actually have to refile for the runoff. They have to file paperwork to run in the November election. So one of them could just decide not to file to run in November. It's not an automatic that their name is on the ballot. They still have to file the appropriate paperwork. So one of them could decide not to do that. I don't know that would happen necessarily. There's been so much money and so much time invested in both of their campaigns that they're just going to want to play this out until they see what happens. But we'll find out more.
I'm just saying this Joe Simidian guy, if his last act in politics before he retires was to come out and say, "Hey, I'm an older guy. I don't."
That's not going to happen. Like for him, especially, this is something he's been looking at he's been eyeing this his whole life.
I understand. But think about
the pinnacle of his career.
Think about walking off the stage looking like a great person, which is not what politics is about. But
is he opposed to that? No. Would he? Again, he's just been. This has been his thing for years. This has been the seat he's been waiting for. He's just been. He's had all his eyes pointed on this. Evan has a life and a career after this, no matter what. Right? He's going to have something to do next year. It's not a question. He's got a political future too, because he's still so young. He's only 40 years old. So really, I don't think it would happen. Yes, it would be beautiful, and he could ride up in the sunset and do that whole thing. Definitely not going to happen.
Well, and it would look like it was all for nothing then if Evan then lost too. Like
right. And
whatever happens here, what the messaging is going to be is that Sam Liccardo was an asshole and meddled in the second place race because he had the money and power to do so. If that isn't the messaging from whoever, be it one or two people running against him, they don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Well, he also meddled during the redistricting process when this district originally, it was a little more gerrymandered in the original drawing, but he actually meddled himself and advocated for changes in the lines that really, at the end of the day, made this particular district much more favorable to him and his demographics. So he's been meddling with this shit for a long time. But again, voters don't have much of a memory, and it can be really hard to draw those lines for them, right? Draw those connections. Even if they've seen it in the news a lot and they've heard about it, and then 6 months later, it's like, well, what happened? How did we get here? Then it's up to you and the other campaigns to make that case. And it's very hard to do.
And leaning too hard into that too leaves somebody open to Sam saying they don't want to talk about the issues or some shit like that.
Right. Why are we whining about March when we should be talking about November and what's going on, what's happening in the future in this district in America? And
it's like the people that in 2020 in 2020 were still relitigating the Democratic primary from 2016. I was like, would you shut up?
The funny thing is, in the greater scheme of things, it's not going to be like this. This is going to be a solid Democratic vote in Washington, right? When they post the big numbers, this vote's going to be in the Democratic column almost every time, no matter where the party is at on any issue. This vote's going to be with the party. So, there's personalities, there's different types of pork that they can bring home. They have different friends, right? And different constituencies that they will pay attention to more and less. But at the end of the day, when it comes to votes and making sure that whatever MAGA nasty Republican agenda needs to be obstructed can be obstructed or thwarted, then this vote will be there for them. Whether it's Liccardo Lowe or Semidian. But hey, wouldn't it be more fun to have somebody fresh and new and engaging?
All right, well, let's move on to winners and losers, where there are no winners unless you were rooting for somebody, and then they probably lose. What do we got the first one here?
You might have heard about this a little bit in the news, but Oakland Airport is kind of sick and tired of losing out to SFO and to SJC, by the way, in the whole branding war over what's the best airport in the Bay Area. So they're trying to change their name, and San Francisco be like, no. So KTVU again with the story.
Airports is heating up with San Francisco issuing a legal threat on trademark infringement grounds, and the Oakland Airport pushing back right out of the gate.
From our perspective, the proposal appears intentionally designed to divert travelers who may be unfamiliar with Bay Area geography.
San Francisco City Attorney David Chu says changing the name of Oakland International Airport to San Francisco Bay Oakland International Airport would lead to confusion. And if Oakland goes down that path, he's ready to sue.
Litigation is always a last resort. It's one that we hope to avoid. But if Oakland chooses to move forward with a decision on Thursday, we will be forced to consider all of our legal options.
Oakland Airport officials say a recent poll shows local residents are comfortable with the name change and support the airport's efforts to increase the number of flights and travel destinations. In a statement, the Port of Oakland, which oversees the airport, said the proposed name modification will clarify, not confuse. The new name identifies where Oakland Airport is actually located, which is on the San Francisco Bay. If the proposed name modification is approved by the board, the port will take all appropriate measures to defend its right to use this accurate geographic identifier.
It's just going to create a lot of costs for both cities. I just don't think it's worth the resources.
Amir Adibi is an Oakland intellectual property attorney who thinks the two airports shouldn't go to court. He says the Oakland Airport will not prevail.
The first two words that you see, that you read, that you hear, right? If you miss that bay, you're going to go to the wrong airport.
Passengers at Oakland Airport had different reactions.
I think it might potentially be confusing for some people, and it might fit the bill for others. I think because you have the Bay Area in there, so I think it still can be in there.
Don't change it. Don't change it at all. Leave it as Oakland International. That's something we've always been used to. SFO is great, but leave it as Oakland.
Keep it Oakland, man. I'm Oakland roots, so I love Oakland.
He's like, I'm from the town, baby.
None against San Francisco, but you already took our Warriors team. At least keep our airport, brother.
Can we call it the town airport?
So Oakland Airport's stance is all fight and no flight. We'll find out Thursday if they continue to go forward with this name change, triggering some air-to-air combat over trademark infringement. Live at Oakland Airport, Henry Lee, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
Yeah, a big decision coming up indeed later this week. One we'll be sure to follow. Henry.
So just a point of, I guess, just a clarification. The San Francisco airport is also not in the city of San Francisco.
Correct. It's in South City, right? But no, yeah, this is getting really spicy really quick. When city attorneys get involved, things get really spicy. But Oakland hasn't been shy about this already. Their airport, I mean, as you saw in their branding, their tagline already says like the fastest way to the Bay, right? Or fastest way to San Francisco Bay. So
I'd like to time the BART ride actually from the Oakland airport to downtown San Francisco versus the San Francisco airport to downtown San Francisco. I'd bet those are within 2 to 5 minutes of each other, like on transit time to get to like Powell Street BART, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine that there's much difference at all, frankly, especially and traffic-wise, human traffic-wise, right? I'm sure that's probably a little lighter at Oakland since they have less passenger traffic. So there's a lot more flights, a lot more activity at SFO, and a lot more people waiting for those trains. So and trying to get to them.
Okay, so this would, again, if the San Francisco airport was in the city or county of San Francisco, this would make sense. But they're lying too now, actually.
Yeah, that's
everybody be lying about where their airport is.
Well, technically, I think I want to say that the airport itself is located in South City. The airport grounds are actually city like land, or they technically are part under the city limits of San Francisco City and County, I think.
No, I just looked it up. I understand that the San Francisco, it's like the Port Authority owns and operates the airport or there whatever, but it ain't in San Francisco.
There you go. So I'm just wondering how, I guess San Francisco then would be just suing on the brand of San Francisco itself, right? For getting,
right.
Not worried about the airport. So it's them, not the airport suing, technically. So yeah, good luck with all of that. It sounds like everyone's going to be hunkering down and going to the mattresses and fighting this one out. So I can't wait to see what happens. I do know that
they should litigate it on Judge Judy. This sounds like some fucking like Wapner shit, right?
Yeah, I do know this much. Like, no one's ever going to be, coming at San Jose's brand and trying to steal any of our thunder. I can tell you that much. So SJC is in good shape. They're going to be fine. You don't have to worry about any of this mess anytime soon. Because who the hell wants to be known as San Jose anyway, other than San Jose?
I just, again, this is all fucking dumb. Let them call it San Francisco Bay Oakland Airport. That is the San Francisco Bay. They're both on the bay. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, what would be really great is if there's some way that all three of our major airports here in the Bay Area could, like, I don't know, partner and figure out ways to share, share traffic, share revenue, share anything, share resources, communication, branding, all of that. It just behooves us. We're a very interconnected society already. The Bay Area is a very interconnected region, and it makes sense to have sort of this triangulation of fantastic airports that all do their own thing but all support each other. That would be really cool instead of suing each other. But hey, I'm not in charge, so maybe I will be one day.
Also, it just smacks of San Francisco snobbery about Oakland that is nothing new.
Are you kidding? So San Francisco snobbery about everything. We're going to get into that in Downballot Watch about changing.
Like when I lived in the city, I knew people that just wouldn't. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to a rave." They're like, "Where's it at?" I'm like, "Oakland," and they're like, "Why are you going to Oakland?"
Dude, why would you do that, right? And don't get me started
it's
about
a rave. And they just these people, because I lived kind of like Castro adjacent. There were people that not only didn't leave the city, they barely left the fucking Castro.
Oh yeah, God. And so therefore, like, the South Bay, frankly, becomes like the land that time forgot. Like, where do you live? San Jose? Where's San Jose? Isn't that really far?
Yeah,
it's like LA, isn't it?
Like I'd be like, "Oh, I'll be out of the city." They're like, "Oh, are you visiting family somewhere?" I'm like, "Oh my God, is that the only reason you leave?"
Why would you leave the city? Where would you go? What would you do? Whatever would we do?
When I lived there, for the most part, I didn't leave San Francisco. Right, my neighborhood had everything, but it didn't have all the raves.
Well, and sometimes you go out, you branch out, and that's what the beauty of the modern world is. We can branch out and go out and check out different locales and neighborhoods and communities on a nightly basis if we want to. We don't need to fire up the horse and buggy and take a day trip down to San Jose. You can come in 45 minutes. You're here, and you can check out what we got going on, and we can check out what you got going on. It's the beauty of living in a beautiful region. Get out of your neighborhood. That's
you know what though? When I lived in the city, I didn't go to San Jose for anything.
You know what? Yeah, I didn't either, and my parents were down here too. So when I was living in San Francisco, so there you go.
Okay,
there you go.
Up next we have the most down-ballot-y story of the week, I think.
Yeah, it had to be. It had to be here.
I don't know. The very last story, the one I added at the end for and other things, pretty down-ballot-y too, but not as much as this one.
Well, let's jump right into it then.
I'm just going to let the local news tell you what's going on here. This is dumb.
For sure.
Oh, anybody ever wonder whether or not the show is live?
Right.
Oh, an error occurred, you say. Let's try this again.
Error. Oh, here we go. Wait, hold on. Oh, man, of course it would be the most down-ballot-y story. The ghost in the machine.
San Francisco's Valencia Street bike lane has been at the center of controversy for months now. Many blame the lane, which goes right down the middle of the street, for driving away business. And now one business owner who says he's had enough is planning to go on a hunger strike in protest. News reporter Luz Pena spoke to the man who calls this his last resort.
Iyad Altawil says this is his last resort.
The suffering of trying to survive every month is way more than this. Sometimes I don't sleep. Sometimes I don't eat.
He's planning to go on a 30-day hunger strike to protest the controversial center bike lane and the 2 parklets he lost after the bike lane was installed.
They took mine away and put a meter.
In February, Iyad, along with 2 other Valencia Street business owners, filed claims against the city of San Francisco, saying the presence of the bike lane was violating their rights.
Violates not only our clients' civil rights, but also the city's charter, which mandates that the city protect the economic welfare of its businesses.
It's been 8 months since the center bike lane was finalized and almost a year since the construction of it began. SFMTA removed 70 parking spots to install the bike lane. Business owners here say that's making it harder for customers to park in the area. After the claim against the city, Iyad was hoping for a change. But as the bills keep piling up, he decided.
Yeah, because parking in the Mission was so easy before that bike lane.
I just want to fight before I go away.
So this is your last fight?
Yep, this is my last fight. It's not fun. Really not.
I'm really hungry.
I'm just trying to provide for my family. So.
Earlier this year, the Valencia Corridor Merchants Association, which represents 200 businesses on Valencia, took a stance against the bike lane. In a letter they sent to SFMTA, they detailed their concerns and suggested a different bike lane design, even asking for its immediate removal. Today, SFMTA responded in part. Our outreach and collaboration will continue throughout the spring as we work on solutions that best protect both businesses and bicyclists on the corridor. Regarding Iyad's parklets, we contacted the city's Shared Spaces program, and they confirmed that Iyad received approval to begin the permitting process for a parklet outside of his restaurant Yasmin. But his second store, Rossi, does not fall under this approval. SFMTA said they did offer a permit for a parklet he would need to remove every day. But Iyad says that's not what he used to have outside of Rossi. So instead, he's protesting in that space.
What if SFMTA comes and they want to remove it?
I just have to remove me with it.
In San Francisco, Luz Peña, ABC 7 News.
So this guy's got two businesses.
Yes, apparently.
That's, I don't know. I mean, I don't want these people like losing their businesses, but this is, and this, to be fair, I don't like this bike lane. But the reason it's not the reason, I think it's less safe than other bike lanes primarily.
Yeah, I don't know what the alignment was like on Valencia before, but it doesn't, it seems a little awkward. But from a tenant's perspective and a business perspective, I don't know how much this shifts things other than his inability, I guess, to have a parklet now without, it sounds like he can get a permit and still have a parklet there. It sounds like he's just building an unpermitted parklet. But from my experience with these road realignments, almost no cases does it result in, less traffic or less people around an area, right? Or shopping in an area. And, I think at some point you just have to think about, if your business is suffering, if you're struggling, like it might be a you problem.
Well,
right. And not necessarily a you problem, but more like just a market problem, right? Maybe there's things have shifted. Are you in a retail business? Well, maybe people are getting their shit on Amazon now, man. And you don't, you're just not viable anymore.
I just remember like if something, like if, let's say we wanted to go to an event that was before like COVID and all this, and we wanted to go to an event that was in the Mission, we would park somewhere other than the Mission and just hop a bus into the Mission because we were going to be there later than BART or whatever. And we didn't want to leave the car in Oakland because we didn't want to pay for a taxi or whatever it might be. So we'd like park, in the Western Addition, maybe over in the avenues somewhere where there's more parking. And then we'd just take a bus into the Mission and the buses ran all night. But we never, like parking in the Mission, it wasn't just a place where you could fucking park your car. That's south of Market.
Yeah. And it's not, I don't see how that's the thing that's driving your retail or your business traffic anyway, especially if you're like a more of a service oriented or food oriented kind of place, right? Or a salon. Like that's something that's neighborhood serving. That's something that people are just going to walk up and use, right? From the neighborhood. People that live in the neighborhood are going to come to your salon. People that live in the neighborhood are going to come to your burrito shop, right? People that live in the neighborhood are going to come to your clothing shop too. And, unless you're creating some sort of destination opportunity for people and you're really, marketing to that clientele and driving people to your store, you can't blame the bike lane for, crushing your business when it's really not the thing that's at fault here. It's, like you said, parking is always a problem. And anyone who got a spot out front of your place is probably going to stay there for quite a while or as long as they can. So it's not like people are coming in and out, right? Boom, 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 shopping at your place. And it's not as though, but I also see it from their perspective in that losing some of those parking spots for parklets is not the biggest thing either, right? Because parking already sucks. And if you can have more space for people to do their business and it's more successful, then sure, great. So yeah, I'm with you. I question sort of the alignment of the bike lanes. It seems a little like precarious already.
Dangerous because you got to cross, no matter if you're turning left or right, you're going right across fucking traffic.
Right. So I don't know what the intersections look like. So it seems a little funky to begin with. I'm guessing Valencia was pretty funky to design to begin with as far as realignment. So maybe they did the best they could. But, hopefully there's opportunity to rethink and rejigger. But, I don't know if it's going to be in time to save this poor guy's business. He has to provide for his family.
But what you were talking about was like the mission isn't really like it's a destination neighborhood insofar as like clubbers go there for like events, but it's not necessarily the mission. It's the whole South of Market area where all the entertainment is. But clubbers and ravers are pretty fucking resourceful, and they're gonna get there and they're gonna get fucking home. I don't care if you put parklets or a bike lane or outlaw cars, they're gonna get there. The destinations in San Francisco, so far as I know it, are Golden Gate Park, which is a nightmare to park in, the Castro, which is an absolute fucking nightmare to park in, and then Fisherman's Wharf, where they have parking garages that they charge you too much for. Those are like the destination spots in Castro or in San Francisco. I may be leaving stuff out, but that's pretty much it.
I mean, the sports venues are probably the only other place now.
Right.
Now
they have their own garages and shit, right?
Well, yeah, yes and no. And they're, in fact, the Giants are actually reducing and have reduced a lot of their parking infrastructure in favor of developing around the ballpark, and they count on a lot of people taking the train, taking Caltrain. They have a lot of fans from outside San Francisco, and it's much easier to catch the Caltrain and come in there and walk a block to the ballpark. They also count on Muni, people taking the Muni rail, and down to Chase Center too, where the Warriors play. I've been to both venues recently and haven't had to drive anywhere near them or park anywhere near them, and have had a great experience and in and out, no problem. Very inexpensive. So people are resourceful. Fans, ravers, whoever it is, we will find a way to get where we want to go and where we need to go. And if you're not marketing to us, if you're not out there trying to get our business, then again, it's a you problem. Right. People don't like. There's shopping and shit in the Mission, but that's not a shopping destination. Like you were saying, that guy's businesses are going to rely on a lot of locals, or if he's open late, maybe foot traffic that maybe coming early to go clubbing or whatever, they might pop in and grab dinner there or whatever, but those people are already there. So right. I don't know what, be interesting to, instead of a fluff piece, to have somebody actually ask this guy some fucking questions about what's going on here. Like, for sure. Well, I'm sure we'll get more as his hunger strike continues. I hope he's okay. So we're going to move on up north to Concord, and there's rent control battle happening in Concord. Let's see what KPIX5 has to say about it.
We begin tonight in Concord, where landlords are pushing back after the city passed a rent control ordinance earlier this year. The landlords are proposing a ballot referendum saying that let the voters decide. John Ramus reports from a rally held by housing activists looking to bring attention to the issue.
After 7 years of often angry debate, the city of Concord passed a new rent control and eviction ordinance, much to the delight of tenants' rights advocates. But now the new law is on hold as landlords scramble to try to put the matter before the voters.
By preventing high rent increases, renters will be able to save money for other needs like groceries and medicine.
The rally at this Concord Park sounded like a campaign for rent control, but that's a battle that has already been won. The question is, who will win the war?
This was approved by City Council 4-1, and this wealthy real estate groups, are putting this on hold. And this will, this will create for renters to keep getting more rent increases or unjust evictions. So we want the residents of Concord to know what's going on in the city.
Vice Mayor Obringer?
Yes.
Mayor Bursan?
Yes. And with that, this item is closed.
In February, the City Council approved new rent controls and just cause eviction protections for renters, and they made it clear that they felt there needed to be more control over landlords.
It's been a rough night. It's been a rough 7 years. We've gave it 7 years without acting, and quite frankly, it didn't work.
We wouldn't be having this conversation if your people, colleagues and friends or whatever who own property and are landlords weren't doing or harassing tenants or abusing their rights.
Then what I say to that is penalize those people.
not the homeowners or the small mom and pop places.
Joe Chironi thinks they went too far. The Concord resident and real estate broker says the city's tenant ordinance
criticizes the little guy like my clients, and I'm a real estate broker.
to 30 and now gives eviction protection to people living in all residential buildings, including single-family homes. Chironi says homeowners could lose all control over their properties, so she's spearheading an effort to put Concord's new ordinance on the ballot.
My feeling was we had asked them to put this to a vote. Let the citizens of Concord, both tenants and landlords, let the citizens of Concord, which includes everybody, vote on the ordinance. That's all we ask, and that's what the referendum is about.
Actually, citizens doesn't include everybody.
For 30 days while Chironi tries to raise enough signatures to qualify the referendum. If she can't, the ordinance goes into effect immediately. And that's why the tenants' rights activists were caravanning through the streets on Sunday afternoon, trying to raise awareness and support if it should come down to a vote. Chironi says she's okay with that.
If the citizens of Concord vote as a majority that they want rent control and this ordinance, then so be it. We'll have to live with it because that's a democracy. Sure. If they vote it down, then that should tell the council something.
If the referendum is successful, the entire ordinance would be scrapped, and the city council would be back to square one on a tenant protection law they spent 7 years creating.
Proponents have until April 18th to gather 7,200 signatures to qualify this measure for the November ballot.
I think that probably 7,200 isn't a lot of signatures in a place like Concord, but I think they're gonna get clobbered at the ballot.
But they're defending democracy, producer Dave. This is about democracy. This is about making sure that the will of the people is upheld. Forgetting the fact that we have these elections where we elect these people that sit on the city council and voted 4-1. That's 80% to support this policy, right? So 80% of the people that you elected, lady, and your neighbors and your citizens, because only citizens, unfortunately, are able to register to vote in most communities, well, in America at least, they decided to pass this ordinance. So you are in the extreme minority as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know what you're talking about with democracy. That's democracy. You elect people to represent you, to make decisions on your behalf, and they make one you don't like. So suddenly you've got to refer it, do a referendum, or worse, recall them because they did something you didn't like. Well, fucking God forbid. I'm so sorry. We had a president for 4 years who did shit that tons of people didn't like, including us, and we couldn't do shit about it until the next election. And guess what we did? We got him out. So it was painful, but we did it. And then you can do the same thing, but you refuse to do that. You just want to do it this way and do it the special way that helps you get what you want in the end, because you think that if less people know about something, the better. The less people voting in an election, the better. The more obtuse you make things, the better, because it just benefits your position, old white lady.
So if this was just around the way in Walnut Creek, I would be like, this is probably going to get voted down because of Concord is like the working class neighbor essentially of Walnut Creek, which is the hoity-toity, nice place. So yeah, and I don't know enough. I could be wrong. They could message this in such a way where they are going to claim that this is going to reduce the availability of rentals because, I don't know, now you're not going to rent your property out because of rent control.
If it's on the ballot, it will be a proxy war, and guaranteed. This is not just about nice old lady landlord, mom and pop who own a couple houses, right, and rent one of them out. No, this is not about them at all, and they know damn well that a lot of them are exempted from this policy, right? And then some of them, frankly, and if they're doing things the right way, right? At the end of the day, this isn't penalizing anybody. Rent control doesn't penalize anybody. Just cause eviction doesn't penalize anybody, landlords or housing providers, as they like to call themselves, or the tenants or anyone else. What it does is put into effect standards so that if someone does do a bad, right, if landlords do evict someone without cause, then yeah, they are responsible and they have to pay the price. But if you're doing things the right way, like this lady says she is and all the others that she supports are, then what's the problem, right? That you should want rules that protect you from being lumped in with all the bad apples, right? You want to weed them out, right? Don't you? But no, it's all about just, less paperwork and less hassle. And yeah, being able in some cases to cut corners and to do things that, and to raise rents exorbitantly, right? Like any of us. Like I had an 18% rent hike once in San Jose, in a place that was not rent controlled. So, and that forced me to move, right? That one rent increase. And so they got to bring someone in, whoever came next, and they got to increase their rent or start them at rent, what they wanted to, really, whatever market rate was, right? They could just bump it up to that and they didn't have to worry about us anymore at all. So yeah, this happens all the time. And to say that this is some sort of penalization, it's only penalization if you're doing something wrong. If you commit a foul, you get penalized. That's how sports works.
So just for another, there's no rent control in Campbell, but you do have recourse. There's a mediation that there's mediators. And in Campbell, the landlords are scared to death of the mediators because something like 85% of the time they side with the tenant.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and, they don't have teeth, but then the tenant can go to the county.
Yeah.
Then when the eviction process starts, because the person doesn't want to pay the rent increase, now the county, the courthouse or whatever is like, well, this mediation you went through in the city you're in sided with the tenant, so they're going to be less inclined to evict essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so, everything's different in different places. And I imagine that was probably a compromise at some point. And I only know this because the old property management that I was with, the lady, as she had to tell me that she was no longer the property manager because my building got bought, started talking to me about that. She's like, hey, if this guy tries to raise your rent a whole lot, there's this mediation process. She's like, we try to discourage the property owners from doing that because of the track record that property owners have in the mediation process. And it just ends up being a waste of time. And we'd like to keep our tenants. So just keep that in mind if you plan on sticking around. I was
sounds like a
thanks.
responsible landlord.
Thanks, lady. Thanks a lot.
That sounds like a responsible housing provider.
Cal Western was pretty good. You're not going to find a lot of fucking property management that has like 4.5 stars on Yelp. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. But if they're 4.5 stars, they're doing it right, and they're not going to get penalized, right? They're not going to be the ones that are held to task for doing stupid shit. So this is all about just catching people doing stupid shit. And predominantly it's the big conglomerates. It's like the Avalons and the big old monster housing providers that have the big lobbyists who are spending tons of money to try and get this thing on the ballot and using nice old lady as, their cover for it, right? Who would go against
a few of them
Rita?
Nice old ladies came out and were like, I'm perfectly fine with following these rules. I do better than this already, actually. I invite my tenants to dinner.
We need rent control, Rita. We'll be late for Mahjong. All right. Well, shall we move on? We have a few more stories, and I'm sorry, we're definitely getting up there in time already.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I don't mind if we run long now because I don't have a band setting up at 9 o'clock.
Speaking of Campbell, you brought them up a minute ago. For some ungodly reason, the FCC chair was in Campbell to talk about net neutrality, and I thought that sounded very down-ballot-y. So I don't know what this is all about, so I thought we'd put it on and find out.
If I lived there and I was alerted to this, I would have attempted to attend.
Right? Unfortunately, this is after the fact. I don't know why they didn't promote this.
Maybe I would have heard about it if I still lived there. Who knows?
Maybe that's why they didn't promote it.
Yeah, they didn't want me going.
Net neutrality, the idea of an open, accessible, unregulated internet for everyone, has been a political battle for years. Now, the FCC is poised to vote on restoring net neutrality as the law of the land after it was taken away by the Trump administration. Today, the head of the FCC came to the South Bay to talk about how restoring it will have a major impact on public safety. NBC Bears Robert Honda tells us why Santa Clara County fire agencies are listening intently.
Net neutrality has always been a topic that centered primarily on consumers and small businesses. But the FCC chairwoman came to the Santa Clara County Central Fire District to talk about net neutrality and public safety, because the firefighters here know what it's like to lose internet access in the midst of a major wildfire. FCC Chairwoman Jessica Rosenzweig held a roundtable discussion on the agency's upcoming vote on net neutrality at the Santa Clara County Fire Department with numerous community leaders and agencies. She chose the site in Campbell to focus on how restoring net neutrality would benefit public safety, because this fire department had its internet access throttled or cut off automatically during the 2018 Mendocino fire when fire agencies hit their internet use limit or cap. She heard from the assistant chief, who said suddenly the fire agencies couldn't coordinate resources out in the field.
The firefighters banded together using personal devices from different carriers that maybe weren't being throttled or hadn't reached a cap in order to get the job done.
Rosenthal says despite the firefighters' ingenuity, or some states, such as California, creating their own net neutrality laws, she's called for a vote April 25th by the FCC to restore the oversight authority it lost in 2017.
In a modern digital economy, I think it's time that we have a national policy of internet openness, and that would be the Federal Communications Commission.
And then the FCC would do what?
We have a complaint process, so we can take in individual consumer complaints and resolve them. We also have rulemaking authority.
The proposal got an endorsement from a carrier company, CEO Dane Jasper of Sonic.com.
We as carriers should not be, in my opinion, picking and choosing not only what people can get to, but how it performs when they interconnect.
A Stanford law professor at the meeting pointed out, in the case of firefighters losing internet access, it doesn't matter who was right or wrong.
What matters was they were fighting a fire in the middle of one of the worst wildfires in California history, and there was nobody the firefighters could turn to ensure that they get connection first and we resolve the issue later.
3 of the Trump administration commission members have been replaced by commissioners selected by the Biden administration, so the proposal has a good chance of passing and would go into effect about 60 days afterwards. In Campbell, Robert Honda, NBC Bay Area News.
That's amazing that the internet service provider was like, didn't have like some kind of protection on the account for a fucking fire department.
Right. That's shocking, ain't it, though? And yet somehow not shocking at all. How is that so hard? How is this so hard to figure out, too? Like, my God, firefighters haven't used their own personal devices to fight the worst wildfires in freaking state history. That's a little frightening. And it makes you think about if we had a real, serious statewide kind of emergency situation, right? Zombie apocalypse kind of scale. How would we be able to respond? I didn't realize that emergency communication systems were throttled because of, usage rates. Like, seriously?
Like I said, like I'm cool with I don't know, I'm cool with phone companies doing that to people, but the fire department, I'm telling you, these are massive companies. There's got to be flags on certain kinds of accounts where it's like, do not shut this off. In fact, I know there are, because if somebody's under, for example, federal investigation and they don't pay their phone bill, guess what doesn't turn off? Their phone.
Oh, good point.
Because, it might be in the, the federal government does this. The FBI does this all the time.
Of course. When those folks still be using their social medias, they're on their TikTok.
Yeah. So that's wild. It's also that Sonic, Dane Jasper is actually a cool dude. I met him at
really?
I met him at Scale one year. That's the Southern California Linux Expo. I met him there. He was manning the Sonic booth. He's the CEO of the company. Was manning the Sonic internet booth.
I was going to ask how serious of a company these guys are, because sometimes when you're trying to find partners on something like this, you have to take what you can get. And I didn't know how big Sonic.com was.
Sonic has always been. I mean, I don't know what's in this guy's heart or whatever, but Sonic has always been in pretty. They've always advocated for open internet. They've never had data caps. They don't just take you down if you're using a torrent service. They have to actually get a complaint and all that kind of stuff, because there's, as they said, there's totally legal uses for BitTorrent. You could be getting, I don't download my Linux ISOs, the install files from a torrent system, because Comcast might eat me, but that's a totally legit use for it, because the fucking thing is free in the first place. So, yeah, they're as far as I can tell, they're pretty serious about it, and that's even if it's a good even if it's primarily a good marketing tool for them versus the other companies. Well, it works because nerds tend to use Sonic.
Got it.
So, and it's unavailable for most people. They don't have a lot of reach. They do piggyback on AT&T's network, and but let me tell you, if I could get a similar internet service that I have right now, but through Sonic, it would probably be cheaper, but also I would just not feel horrible about where my money's going.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully some more progress on this, because it was a big setback to lose that during the Trump administration. So hopefully we can roll back even more of the bullshit that they did, other than the Supreme Court, of course.
So up next, we got, you're calling this Buffy Wicks versus Ticketmaster. I have no idea what this is. Let's let the local news give us the information here.
Go Buffy. Do it.
Uh-oh. Have some YouTube issues today.
Live.
There it goes.
Dressing up for a big concert or wearing your favorite team's gear. Live events are supposed to be so much fun, but attending one is not cheap, and lawmakers say they're getting more expensive.
Since Ticketmaster and Live Nation were allowed to merge in 2010, ticket prices have gone up an astronomical 140%.
Anybody want to answer this question? How expensive are they? We went around Walnut Creek Monday afternoon asking people.
Chris Stapleton, in the grass, crowded, very back, almost $700.
I've got friends that, of course, went recently to, Taylor Swift, and they were thousands of dollars. It was ridiculous.
A new bill introduced by East Bay Assemblywoman Buffy Wicks aims to bring those prices down. It would allow for more than one company to be the first to offer tickets for sale. Right now, for many events, especially concerts, there is only one option. Wicks thinks it would open up more competition and lower prices for consumers.
Ticketmaster controls 80% of the primary ticket sales in the United States. This lack of competition, or otherwise known as a monopoly, hurts consumers.
You heard it from those people, hundreds of dollars spent on tickets. One couple we spoke with says it got so bad one time they didn't even want to deal with Ticketmaster. They saw a show recently at the Concord Pavilion and said, hey, we're just going to wait in line at the box office. Zach and Juanita Burris don't even think it's worth it to go buy tickets online.
It took me 20 minutes. That was about it. Yeah, it was nothing. No fees.
We bought there at the box office because we didn't want to go through the sites.
Ticketmaster said in a statement, we support reforms to improve ticketing, but AB 2808 will not do that. It will instead undermine the efforts of artists, sports teams, and primary ticketing companies to minimize ticket scalping. But if you ask the people we spoke with, they say the prices of events are way too high and sell out fast. It's at the point where they won't buy them.
You don't really have a choice. And then when you go to a different service as StubHub or SeatGeek, the fees get even higher.
In the East Bay, Ryan Curry, ABC 7 News.
Yeah, they always use this ticket scalping as like a, they're like, oh, but look over here. And it's like, well, even if the scalpers are doing a bad thing, that doesn't absolve you of what you're doing, right?
Yeah, 100%. And just trying to protect profit margins and protect their monopoly like any other monopoly business would do. So we'll see. I props to Buffy. She's a great legislator. I've known her for a long time, since she was a staffer on the Obama campaign back in 2008 with me. So good on her for pushing this. We'll see how far it goes, though. You take on the big guns, and they usually come back for you. So, but she's pretty tough. So again, I'm not counting her out at all in this fight. And it would be great to get some, ticket price relief. I don't think that's happening anytime soon. I think it is what it is. And you're just going to have to shell out more and more if you want to see your favorite bands as they get bigger and bigger. But hey, all the more reason to go check out your local bands. Go down to the Caravan, and I don't even know if there are covers most nights at the Caravan, but pay $5, pay $10.
I don't even think the Caravan has a viable way to charge cover, because you just walk in the back door.
Correct. Yeah. And you'll see like 3 or 4 bands on any given night, and you can walk up to them afterwards and talk to them and get to know them. And, if you dig them, you can go see them when they get really big and they move up to like, the back bar or the Voodoo Lounge is gone. Let's see, Johnny V's is gone. Let's see.
The Ritz?
I'm sure I'll think of some music venues.
The Ritz?
The Ritz, right. The Ritz.
Art Boutique.
If you're lucky enough to get a gig at the Ritz. Oh yeah. Art Boutique. There you go. You can graduate to Art Boutique.
So we're going to move on to get your shit together, and this is what we call crossing the streams here. I can't wait to see the Jim Lee video about the thing and get your shit together.
Well, let's find out.
Everybody, in Get Your Shit Together, we have a, we'll call it a chemtrails adjacent story.
That roar is not coming from a snow machine.
It's also not a roar. It's like a
Said the plume you
It's like an electric car.
tiny aerosol particles. It's the first technology in the country to test ways to brighten clouds in an effort to cool the globe.
This system is composed of 3 main components.
In these tanks, Jessica Medrado and a group of scientists from the University of Washington's Marine Cloud Brightening Program are mixing salt and water and using a compression system to test if this machine can distribute the right size particles. They say Alameda provides the perfect cloud conditions over the bay.
If you make the particles that are too small, they are not going to create the effect that you want in this marine cloud. If you make them too big, they will actually create or induce rainy clouds.
The goal? To mimic the effects of pollution in a cleaner way, using salt water to brighten clouds, which they hope will then reflect more sunlight back into space to help cool the Earth. Still in the early phases, Program Director Sarah Doherty says right now they need to figure out if it's even possible and how much impact it could have.
To understand, so with something like marine cloud brightening, you're not going to just reverse global warming. So it's really important how it plays out in the climate system will depend on where you could brighten clouds and how much.
Cal State East Bay professor Elena Giventel is excited about the research, but cautions that as Earth continues to heat up, the various ideas for cooling the world are not without controversy.
While there are certain benefits from trying to cool the environment, we're not quite sure what kind of negative effects.
Doherty believes reducing emissions is the most important tool, but says that alone won't be enough.
We are kind of locked in at this point, committed to significant climate disruption. So the question is, are there other things we can do to help reduce suffering and impacts? And this might be one of them.
The group of researchers plan to be here throughout the summer. They also hope that they can make this an educational experience for those who visit the museum. In Alameda, Valina Jones, NBC Bay Area News.
Chemtrails, what do we got here?
Oh my God, I cannot imagine what Madison Starman would think of
Oh
this.
yeah, like don't fucking tell anybody if you're doing this. I'm just telling you, because they're gonna be like, that's not salt, it's aluminum and barium and strontium.
Oh yes, there's tiny little electrodes and microchips embedded in those water particles that are gonna infect our brains and get us all on brain control. I mean mind control. This is so fun. It's like I definitely don't trust these people at all with the brightening, and I think it's kind of silly because you're just putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. But it is going to be really interesting to see the backlash from the folks we don't like. If these folks are like on our side, right? Climate fighters. What about the climate deniers and the chemtrail activists? They're going to love this. They're creating chemtrails. They're basically creating their own ground-based chemtrails.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Just stop it. Just stop giving.
Yes.
It's like when fucking Bill Gates goes up on stage. Like I see something like Bill Gates is talking. I'm like, great. He's gonna fucking put chum in the water for all the fucking QAnon people. Go for it, Bill. Like,
yeah, seriously.
That's all this is chum in the water for the chem people, right?
Right. Well, these scientists have no idea from the University of Washington have no idea what's coming for them. If only they listened to Ecoplex or watched Ecoplex Media on a regular basis, they would know.
Shout out to I do know some science communicators, not necessarily that are in the climate change space, but I do know some science communicators out there who are in fact aware of the brain rot that exists out there. I guess shout out to Marcus, aka Homozygote, occasional guest on the Intellectual Dollar Tree and a friend of the show. Well, we don't really make many friends on Twitch, but he's a postdoc, and he does a lot of talk about scientific and medical misinformation. But you're right, most people in those fields are just blissfully unaware of the Telegram application and the kinds of crazy things that are being said on the Telegram application.
Correct. Like the folks that Maddie Moon would call on a regular basis. Like I think they were kind of ready and used to, because they're the ones on the front lines. They're ready and used to getting that incoming traffic. The folks who actually do the scientific research have no idea what's out there. Especially, I mean, they don't have any idea like who won the World Series or the latest Oscar or what Taylor Swift's album is called. Right? They don't know any of this stuff. They know their thing, right? So they definitely don't know anything about Telegraph. Like, what's Telegraph?
I mean, if this kicks off the way this is going to kick off, is they're going to say that this is an already existing program instead of like a thing they're experimenting with, right? They're gonna it'll be painted as oh, look, it's proof they're admitting to chemtrails, and it's like, well, it seemed like that was on a boat, not in the sky,
right?
All right,
but far be it for them to know.
We're gonna move on to Down Ballot Watch, and it looks like the San Francisco mayor's race is heating up, and Aaron Peskin is running for San Francisco mayor. Let's see how NBC Bay Area covers this.
Spicy.
All right, the race to be San Francisco's next mayor just got a little more crowded. Aaron Peskin formally launched his campaign to be the city's next leader today at a rally in Chinatown. The progressive leader is a president of the Board of Supervisors, and the response to his announcement was quick. Here's NBC Bay Area's Christy Smith.
I'm announcing my candidacy for mayor today.
Aaron Peskin formally making that announcement in front of a crowd of supporters at Portsmouth Square in Chinatown.
I will be a mayor who loves this city and does not beat up on it for political gain.
Hell yeah.
A mayor who works for everyday San Franciscans and their neighborhoods.
The Board of Supervisors president making that promise about how he'd handled key issues in the city, including public safety, homelessness, and revitalizing downtown.
And I ask you to join with me, to fight with me, to save our city without sacrificing our values.
Peskin is the fifth high-profile person looking to toss their hat in the ring. A spokesperson for Mayor Breed's campaign said this week in a statement in part, Aaron Peskin is synonymous with intimidation, obstruction, and dysfunction, literally the triple crown of moving San Francisco backwards. Former Mayor Mark Farrell said in a statement he believes Peskin, quote, represents the status quo at City Hall, not the, quote,
yeah, but Mark Farrell looks like a venture capitalist.
In leadership San Franciscans are looking for. The campaign for Daniel Lurie, San Francisco philanthropist and heir to the Levi family fortune, said in a statement Lurie's, quote, campaign of accountability and leadership stands in stark contrast to the gang of City Hall insiders who have failed to get the
heir to the Levi's throne is like, this guy's the establishment. Good job. Good messaging.
And Peskin's opponent in the mayoral race and colleague on the Board of Supervisors, Asha Safai, saying he's running to, quote, bring real change to City Hall and be the voice for all San Franciscans. Ultimately, it will be up to voters to decide.
I think it's important that they're not part of the current administration, that they're coming from a fresh perspective.
I love this city and I love living here. I just hope we get somebody that's actually for the people.
Christy Smith.
Thanks, AJ.
NBC Bay Area News.
Oh, this is going to be a shit show. This is going to be a fucking shit show.
It is. And Peskin is like ostensibly the progressive liberal candidate because the other ones are all bootlickers, frankly. But even he has his warts, as we've seen on Down Ballot before ourselves. He's opposed, denser developments in certain neighborhoods because of neighborhood character, trying to force development in certain areas of San Francisco. But, at the end of the day, he would be the most progressive. But there's all sorts of baggage in this race that goes way back. Peskin was, as you'll recall from, if you're a loyal Down Ballot follower, Peskin was the lead architect of keeping Mayor Breed from becoming mayor to begin with when Ed Lee passed away. He forced the issue on, you shouldn't be running. You should commit not to run if you're going to be appointed mayor. So he got her pretty much ousted from the appointment and got Mark Farrell, ironically enough, now a candidate to be installed as the interim mayor, pissing off tons of people who saw him as passing over a black woman for a white man, which he kind of was, but all for political favors. Anyway, there's lots of baggage here. It looks like Farrell and Breed had nothing kind to say about the guy that hurt and helped them, and the other candidates are just trying to keep as far away from it as possible. But yeah, Peskin's an interesting character. It'll be spicy. I'll give you that. It'll be very spicy.
Isn't he the one that we used to joke about? Like every time they're like, "Oh, somebody from the city council is here," you don't say it's Peskin.
Yeah, he's always there. Like there's a fire and he's there. Why is the fire department not doing more? The people demand better. There's a
never met a
emergency.
TV camera he didn't like.
Oh fuck no! Yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely not. This was like a very well orchestrated event. This is very well put together. He's all about the publicity, and also a big player in the Democratic Party in San Francisco. But it's just very telling that this is the guy that's going to be the progressive standard bearer in San Francisco. It's just supposed to be, at least according to Donald Trump and all his folks, this liberal TikTok bastion, right? Or libs of TikTok bastion of crazies and drug addicts and, all sorts of bad shit. And yet, the people who are lining up to run for mayor against London Breed are all trying to outflank each other on the right. It's pretty funny. So Peskin's going to seem like freaking, Bernie Sanders compared to all these fuckers.
Oh God, yeah, I can't imagine. Like the Fox, like when Fox News gets a hold of this guy, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. So I'm looking forward to lots of spicy programming here on Downballot. Stay tuned, please. Keep downloading, keep watching. Drop some subs to producer Dave so he can move into an even bigger house.
So,
I'm kidding.
So up next, I guess violent crime and property crime. There's a small sample size thing, but it seems to be down, which is, I think, good news, no matter who the mayor is. Yeah. And but of course, the mayor is probably, the San Francisco mayor, London Breed, is probably going to say some dumb shit about it. Let's see if I am correct.
San Francisco Mayor London Breed, in a tough re-election fight, now touting some new data showing that crime is dropping in the city. Quick to comment, of course, challenges for Breed's seat. KTV's Christian Captain has that and what some residents are saying.
In a city that has had more than its fair share of headlines about crime, the latest data show that crime in San Francisco is dropping. The mayor's office releasing statistics showing property crime is down 32% over the first 3 months of last year, and violent crime is down 14%, including 0 homicides in the month of February.
Every arrow is pointing down, whether it's burglaries, car break-ins, you name it, rapes, anything that's happening in a major city like San Francisco. It's been incredible.
The mayor's office credits the city's collaboration with state and federal law enforcement partners and a district attorney's office that holds criminals accountable once they're arrested.
We are putting everything that we have at our disposal to good use, and the numbers, the data reflect it.
KTVU reached out to those challenging the mayor for her seat in November. Former interim mayor Mark Farrell released a statement reading in part, quote, "For many San Franciscans, the anemic progress that the mayor continues to tout is too little, too late. We need a mayor that will deliver real results and change, and that is what I will do on day one." Daniel Lurie also released a statement reading, quote, "San Francisco needs a mayor that cares about your safety every day, not just in an election year." Those who live and work in San Francisco are also weighing in about whether they're seeing those signs that the streets are safer.
My sense is that that's true, that data is borne out in my personal experience. I have not felt that extreme threat or concern in a long time. I think it was worse during COVID. I think there were times when it felt really scary to be out on the streets.
In terms of safety, I still feel pretty safe, to be honest. I think a lot of people mind their business if you mind their own, but
Oh, I like her.
I haven't seen so much change, to be honest.
The mayor's office says it expects crime to continue to trend downward, especially in light of Proposition E, which passed just last month and would allow police to use new technology to track down criminals. In San Francisco, Christian Captain, KTVU, Fox 2 News.
So the argument about this too is this is just like arrests. So you could juice the stats just by like not pursuing criminal, not, you know what I'm saying? Like you could juice the stats by like not taking reports. Like these are these kind of point in time things are generally kind of useless, actually.
Yeah, and it's right. It's based on reports too, right? So any given time there could be a spike or a dip in reporting, and I mean obviously murders are going to get reported. So hey, good for you. No homicides in February. Congratulations. But yeah, even comparing year over year, like January this year to January last year, or God forbid January to December, right? Like it's not a very adequate or sufficient or really sensible way to look at crime statistics. Like you've said before on this program, right? And we've said before, it's really looking at the long-term trends, and the long-term trends are down. And to let, upticks or downturns on an annual basis, or even a couple years basis, determine how you are conducting city business, in the long term, and how you're responding to it. It's not a very sensible way to create policy. You need to think long term, examine long term, and create long term, and then just be able to respond nimbly as emergencies and crises develop, right? And things shift, the winds shift. You should be able to be limber enough to change policies, but you should set policies based on long term trends, not based on the winds of change or what happened last year when it was a wholly different situation than this year, right? And the year before that was a wholly different situation because of what we've been dealing with COVID and everything else that the young lady mentioned, right? Not much has changed. It's just the conditions have changed.
And I have this hypothesis that there may be a way in which the drop from like the late 80s through the mid 90s, where cities had a lot more crime, we may just be bouncing off of some floor because people are people and shit happens. And so there may just be some floor that you're not going to get below, or that it's just incredibly difficult to get below. And the violent and property crime may just be bouncing off of this floor that it's a social. The floor would be like a socially constructed floor, mind you, but there may just be some floor here that it's just bouncing off of.
It's quote unquote what you get in cities, right? Like we've talked about before. It's just what you get when you put people together. Until people are perfect, this whole thing's going to be imperfect. So the more people you put in a denser space, the more imperfection you're going to see.
Yeah, you have opportunities for conflict.
Right. And we're getting better at it, though, frankly. It amazes me that we have such densely populated areas, especially in areas like the Bay Area that are so diverse, right? And we don't have race riots every day. It's amazing. So kudos to us. We're moving in the right direction. And those charts and graphs, if you zoom in, there are dips, right? There are little jagged edges, but on the whole, when you zoom out, it's like this, right? Or sorry.
Right. Anyway, there's a lot of talking points about particularly crime in cities that just fall apart when you zoom out on a fucking chart a little bit.
Right. Right. Anyone can skew data however they want based on the sample size and the time, right? The timeline. So always remember when you're looking at charts and graphs, folks, explore the Y and the X axis and figure out what are the metrics that they're using on those axes, and try and determine what kind of chart you're looking at. Are you looking at something that's trying to manipulate you to think a certain way or to back up a certain argument? Or are you looking at factual, empirical data that really gives you a full glimpse of what's going on?
Right. It's like we have a one pretty popular podcast on here. And if week to week, I'm like obsessing over, was there more this week than last week? Like that's crazy making, right?
Right.
And it doesn't like give any like real indication of what's going on. That's why I pay for a service that'll give me a graph that'll show me a year or 2 years, for example, if need be.
Right.
All right. Time to move on to another thing. We have 2 stories. Both of them are fun, I suppose. The first one that you put on, this is the world's longest scarf. Let's see if they made it. And I don't know who would wear this scarf, but whatever. Maybe we can all wear it.
My mom.
A Richmond woman is waiting to hear if she has broken the Guinness World Record for the world's longest crocheted scarf. Her scarf was measured at Richmond's Craneway Pavilion yesterday to fulfill one of the many rules that Guinness requires to enter its record book. Daisy Patak started crocheting that scarf more than a year ago. She took on this ambitious project despite having a full-time job and 2 kids, telling us she worked on that giant scarf everywhere she went.
At the movie theater, at restaurants, I can't tell you how many sports games and sports practices for my kids. I'll be sitting there in my camp chair just working away, but it all paid off.
She was like, I'll hold the mic, thank you.
880 feet long, about the size of 3 football fields. It's about 50 feet longer than the current record holder.
Hell yeah. Yeah, she did that in a year? Fuck yeah.
Boom.
Maybe
good on her, man.
Maybe she should fucking run for office. My God.
There's plenty of people who do run for office and serve in office, so I would actually recommend just sit around and crochet and don't get get into this shit. Please don't meddle with this shit. You're much better crocheting.
Yeah, somebody in chat's like, I hope the community helped donate the yarn because that's a lot of yarn.
Yeah, I hope she was able to find some rainbow yarn and make it a little interesting too. But
yeah,
it's always a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. So good for her. That's cute. I like cute stories like that on the news. Now
this
we've got a
cute.
Bizarre story, because I got to tell you that if I just saw this, I'd be like, what the fuck?
Right.
So apparently people saw a house floating across the bay. It didn't fall into the bay, I don't think. We'll find out more. Here's what we rarely use stuff from Cron 4, so that's why I picked them. I'm like, we don't really use Cron 4 very much.
Let's do it. Let's give them some love.
Not every day you see a houseboat unmoored, just floating along the bay. This is a site that's been attracting a lot of attention. Cron 4's Charles Clifford has been looking into this. He has details from Sausalito. Chuck?
Well, good afternoon. Yesterday I was down at the Exploratorium along the Embarcadero in San Francisco doing a story about the eclipse, and we all standing there and this house floated by. And I didn't think too much of it at the time. I thought it was kind of funny, but apparently it caught a lot of people's attention. So we've been looking for this house and I found it. Let's go ahead and take a look at some video here. Now, right now, this 2-story house, it's got shingles and a roof and windows. It's currently anchored out in Richardson Bay, just offshore here in Sausalito. Now, we called the Coast Guard and they said that yes, this houseboat, which is actually a house on a barge, was being towed very slowly by San Francisco yesterday, and they were keeping an eye on it. They were monitoring it, but they say, not unusual for houseboats to move around San Francisco Bay. It was a little odd that it went this far. Apparently, it came from south of San Francisco somewhere, went all the way across the bay past Alcatraz, and is now anchored out here near Sausalito. They say this is perfectly legal. The owner of this boat can do this. It happens from time to time. We don't know what the ultimate where this ultimately will end up. There are several piers here in Sausalito with very similar looking homes anchored there. It could possibly end up in a dock over there. And again, we haven't yet found the owner of the boat or the house.
Leave them alone.
Hired a contractor to move the boat across the water.
You talk to the contractor.
They can find a place to put their home here in the near future. That's the very latest here in the North Bay. Charles Clifford, Cron 4 News.
Yeah, I can see.
Leave the person whose houseboat that is alone. Talk to the person who's moving it and make sure that it's being done safely or whatever, so that the house doesn't end up on the bottom of the bay. But leave the poor, like this person lives on a houseboat. You don't live on a houseboat unless you kind of want to be left alone and want to be able to just pick up and leave. Like there's a certain kind of person that has a houseboat and they don't want to talk to you.
That's the ultimate mobile home, right? Like you can really go anywhere, given the right seas and the right conditions. Yeah. Let's not mess with people unless they're endangering themselves or someone else. But it would be pretty funny to be doing a story and suddenly
somebody in chat's all leave me alone, you landlubbers.
Yeah, landlubbers. Anyway, well, this is what happens in the bay. We got all sorts of people. We got all sorts of things going on, and something's always floating by. You just got to slow down a little bit and take a look, and usually we catch it here on Downballot.
And I don't know, sometimes you got to move your houseboat.
Occasionally, just don't, make sure you set anchor somewhere where there's no, heavy traffic of large, shipping freights or anything like that.
Yeah. So that's the show. You want to read us out?
For sure. Producer Dave, thank you so much, as always, for running the dials for us this week. Thank you, viewer, for tuning in. Thank you, chat, for all of your wonderful comments, suggestions, and ideas, and sometimes your confusion with what we cover here on the show. And thank you, listener, for making us the 9th best local news podcast in California, according to some dude. Here at Downballot, we always encourage you to wear a mask, to make sure that you think about wearing pants, but it's entirely optional. You should get vaxxed because it's the right thing to do. Producer Dave's going to continue the loveliness here in red light with a little bit of public comment, so definitely stay tuned for that. Come back next Tuesday night at 7:30 Pacific. We're here almost every week doing this, and we really love having you. We're going to play some Audible Smoke and get out of here, and I invite you to enjoy the rest of your evening. Peace out.
Time to get the party started. Pick up my phone just to check and see who's calling. Dress up real nice for the ladies at the bar, and I'm driving in my car just to get to where they are. Here at the local scene is where I plant my feet. It's where I smoke my cigarette and I hold my drink. I look at all my friends, they're all blazing greens. Here at the front of the stage, waiting for MTV. Where are those guys who's standing next to me with a pipe in his hand, ready to blaze for me? About 5 minutes later, we're all singing Queen. Now get the fuck up on stage, man, rock the scene, yeah. We do what we want, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the the band. We do what we want, what we wanna do, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. Enjoy that band. I turn and head back to the bar for a refill, man, because you know where we are. We're headed out to the car to smoke another one and another one. Now just when the magic starts kicking in, I hear relapse playing, you know it's time to head in. Alright everybody, now it's time to grab a new drink, spark it if you got it, and then pass it to me. Yeah, we do what we want, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. We do what we want to do, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. Enjoy that band. Last up on the bill for the show tonight is Down and Dirty at 5, so we're headed outside to spark up another joint. Now who's got my lighter? Stoner E, of course, shouldn't you be inside?
I'm all up in this bitch, being who I gotta be. I'm fucked up like the U.S. economy. The truth is that I don't think logically. Stoner E take you on a psychedelic odyssey. Now inside motherfuckers is rocking me, and outside shit we smoke a lot of broccoli. Rocky the roller, yo, that sexy girl be jocking me. Ain't too drunk to fuck, but I'll probably do it sloppily.
We do what we want, what we wanna do, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. Enjoy the band and enjoy that band. We do what we want, what we wanna do, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band.
Molly say that he like jamming, and he hope he like jamming too. Well, I gotta say, thank you, Bob, we do. Yes, I gotta say, thank you, Bob, we do. Well, Bob Marley said that he like jamming, and he hope he like jamming too. Well, I gotta say, thank you, Bob, we do. Yes, I gotta say, thank you, Bob, we do. Yeah,
we do what we want, and what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. We do what we want, and what we wanna do, what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band. Enjoy that band. We do what we want, what we wanna do, what we want is to jam. So sit back and enjoy the band.